then the Lord protected him. Kunti was actually offering her prayers as well to the Lord. And by the prayers of Kunti and many others and Yudhishthir, and knowing that Bhishma has also not passed away, and to pacify Yudhishthir, give solace to Subhadra, who had lost her son, only son, Abhimanyu, in the battle. For this reason, the Lord actually stayed for many more months, although he was leaving at that time. And so he stayed in Hastinapur. We can imagine he is their relative. Every day they were talking to him, they were sitting with him, they were having meals with Krishna. They were taking his advice. So, and they were all, and he is the most attractive person. So they were all, they just could not imagine him leaving. Like the whole world would become vacant, like Lord Chaitanya prays. It was almost like that, because they were so closely, intimately related. Not just any mundane relationship. They all knew he was the Supreme Lord. And yet they also accepted him as their family member. And the Lord actually fulfilled all the obligations, all the expectations, all the desires of all of them. So therefore, just the thought of him leaving was actually, it is described in these verses a little bit prior to these prayers, that so many of them were, just by the thought of the Lord leaving, were actually almost losing consciousness. So, I mean, I don't hear so much in this day and age of people almost becoming unconscious by someone's leaving. The intensity of attachment that they had to Krishna was incomparable to even anything in this world. Even mundane relationships, they don't have that intensity. There are some times when it becomes really intense and someone cannot live without somebody and they commit suicide or something. That's there, but on this higher level of spiritual existence, which they were all completely into, this relationship was very, very deep, strong, and the loving feelings were so intense. So therefore, there was no question of not feeling separation from him. Just the thought of him going back to Dwarka was actually quite unsettling for them. So anyway, finally they knew that they had, Yudhishthir Maharaj gave the permission for him to go. And the Lord was starting to go. And then we have these ladies of Hastinapur who were in Hastinapur. Now, we should remember that a very big catastrophe, a Kurukshetra war had happened. 640 million people had died. So many women had become widows. And many of them were also in the palace of the Kuru dynasty, this Hastinapur. They went up to the rooftops and they were talking amongst themselves about the glories of Krishna. And that's what our topic is today. There are 5 verses of these prayers from text, Canto 1, chapter 10, text 21 to 25, which relate to these prayers that they offered. Now, if you look at the prayers, I mean, since we have only about less than an hour, so, and more so now because of the problems that we were having. So I would just go through these shlokas, but before we start, let's do the Mangalacharan prayers. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurur Shri Utpadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha kalpaturubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'll bring up on the screen we can I will recite this and you could all recite with me if you're able. We will recite these 5 shlokas and then we'll try and speak something about them. Savai kilayam purushaha puratano ya eka asid avishesha atmani agre gunebhyo jagadatmanishware nimilitatman nishi supta shaktishu. And the translation, they said, here he is, the original personality of Godhead, as we definitely remember him. He alone existed before the manifested creation of the modes of nature, and in him only, because he is the Supreme Lord, all living beings merge, as if sleeping at night, their energy suspended. Then we'll go to the next verse. Can everybody see the screen?
That's very nice.
Yes,
Yeah.
Prabhuji.
All right. Sa eva bhuyo nija virya choditam swajiva mayam prakritim sishikshatim anamarupadmani rupanamani vidhit samano nusasara shastrakrit. The personality of Godhead, again desiring to give names and forms to his parts and parcels, the living entities, placed them under the guidance of material nature by his own potency. Then the next one. Sava ayam yat padamatra surayo Jitendriya nirjita matarishvanaha Pashyanti bhaktyut kalitamalatmana Nanvesha sattvam parimarshtumarhati. Here is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead whose transcendental form is experienced by the great devotees who are completely cleansed of material consciousness by dint of rigid devotional service and full control of life and the senses. And that is the only way to purify existence. Then next 24. Sava ayam sakyanugita satkatho vedeshu guhyeshu cha guhyavadibihi ya eka isho jagadatma leelaya srijatyavatyatti na tatra sajjate. Oh dear friends, here is that very personality of Godhead whose attractive and confidential pastimes are described in the confidential parts of Vedic literature by his great devotees. It is he only who creates, maintains, and annihilates the material world and yet remains unaffected. And then the final verse of the prayer, which is text 25. Yada hya dharmena tamo dhiyo nripa jivanti tatraisha hi sattvatah kila dhatte bhagam satyamritam dayam yasho bhavaya rupani dadad yuge yuge. Whenever there are kings and administrators living like animals in the lowest modes of existence, the Lord in his transcendental form manifests his supreme power, the truth positive, shows special mercy to the faithful, performs wonderful activities, and manifests various transcendental forms as is necessary in different periods and ages. So, just before we go on specifically with these prayers, there's a few things I thought of mentioning. And that is that the offering of prayers are always dependent on the consciousness of the person. Whatever consciousness we are in, that's the type of prayer we would actually offer if we do offer. And some people cannot offer a prayer at all. But those who are pious and those who are in the devotional line, they generally offer prayers. Otherwise, prayers of glorification, prayers for asking for something, like that. So prayers may be for many reasons offered. And there is a set standard that generally it's an unspoken standard by the devotees followed when they are learning some prayers. It is not actually laid out, but it's done in a certain order. And that order, I would like to just bring up and see if many of you agree to this. The first thing is when we want to learn some prayers, because we don't have any of our own prayers, and we are taught that we are actually still trying to get freed from the modes of material nature, or we are trying to become Vaishnava devotees. We are not necessarily already Vaishnava. We are Vaishnava prior. We are practicing Vaishnavas, put it that way. So, therefore, when we offer prayers, we are recommended to learn the prayers that are offered by persons who are advanced in devotional life. And there are many, many such advanced devotees and pure devotees of the Lord who are in the Bhagavatam who offer prayers. And I just heard from Nanda Prabhu that actually you are doing a series on these prayers. So maybe some other devotees previously, while talking about prayers, have said something. I will say this. I don't know what the others have said, but I will. I had the process how generally devotees learn the prayers. So the first thing they try to do is that they memorize the Sanskrit verses. Once they have memorized the verses, then they do a daily recital of these verses so that they don't forget these verses. And once they have also been good at daily reciting these verses without looking up, and they know that they are reciting them properly, then those who are more serious, they will go and they'll read the translations and understand the meanings of these prayers. Then, so you read the translations, you understand, try to understand what those prayers mean. Now, the next thing, I would actually, if possible, it would be good if we can open it up for a discussion here. Can we do that? The question would be then, after you have read the translations and understood the meanings of the prayers, what is the next thing that generally devotees do in regards to those prayers? Anybody likes to suggest something? You can unmute and speak.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Normally we'll meditate if we know the meaning.
You meditate on the meaning. Once you've gone through the translations, you meditate. Anything else?
Hare Krishna. My Guru Maharaj says that we should go nearer to the meaning, which helps in understanding the verse more clearly.
Maybe nearer to the meaning. Anything else? That's sorry.
Realization comes in and then we apply in our life.
We apply the realizations in our life. Okay. Can everyone hear me? Because I'm getting a message here. Am I clear to everyone?
Yes, very clear. Loud and clear.
All right. So anyway, so I'll go ahead with this because we will run short of time. So after reading the translations and understanding the meanings and meditating on it, I've got two more things to the list. And the one after that is that you reflect on the intensity of emotions and feelings expressed while praying. I'll read that again. Reflect on the intensity of emotions and feelings expressed while praying. Because it's the bhava or the mood the attitude and the feelings that actually go into the prayer, which makes a prayer very, very attractive to Lord Krishna. So, first you memorize the verses, then you do a daily recital, then you read the translations and understand the meanings. Then you reflect on the intensity of the emotions and feelings expressed while praying. And the fifth one is that you emulate the same mood when reciting that prayer. And this mood, that bhava, is the one actually which attracts Krishna. So our prayers are certainly nice to learn and memorize, but I think the full benefit of the prayers are obtained by a person who can also enter into the mood of the prayers. Now, normally we are very cautious when we recite prayers, and we are advised to recite prayers only composed by pure devotees, so that we may not have the wrong kind of signals going to Krishna, put it that way. And so the prayers that are to be offered should be in pure devotion. Sometimes devotees also have material desires, you know. Now, just for a minute, I'll tell you a little incident that happened. It's quite interesting, actually. Our devotees here in Brisbane were actually preaching to some person and trying to convince them to take a set of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we all know that Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna. So I don't know where this tradition has come about from, but it's like they do an official installation of the Bhagavatam in someone's house when they buy one, or welcoming ceremony, put it that way, for Krishna, welcoming Krishna in the home. Because actually, if it's called installation, it doesn't make sense, because an installation, Bhagavatam doesn't need installation. Bhagavatam is directly Krishna himself. You don't need an installation for that. Just like the Shalagram Shila is directly the Lord himself. You don't need to install a Shalagram Shila, but you need to install some other deities. So like that, the Bhagavatam is actually the Supreme Lord himself, non-different. That verse is there in the Bhagavatam, which says that after Lord Krishna Swadhama Pagate, when he went to his own dham, then in his place now, he is present in the form of the Bhagavatam. So this person was actually, hasn't become a devotee yet, but the devotees were recommending that you get the Bhagavatam in your home, you read this. And someone mentioned to him that all your material desires will be finished. All your material desires will be finished because all the Kaitava Dharma is uprooted and thrown away from the Bhagavatam. So this person became really concerned. No, I don't want to finish off my material desires. I have certain desires that I want to get. I have certain desires and I'm not ready yet to give up all the desires. So I am therefore not going to get the Bhagavatam. Just like, people have this concept, they're actually preaching this nowadays, that do not keep the copy of the Mahabharata in your house, because in your house then Mahabharata will start. Great fight will happen. Or if you read the Bhagavad Gita, that someone will die in your family, as if nobody dies if the Bhagavad Gita is not read. So all these nonsense misconceptions are actually floating around. But this Srimad Bhagavatam is is directly Krishna himself. So one devotee actually was informing me. I was not at the program or at that incident, and so I said, "What happened? What happened then?" So we left it because he didn't want the Bhagavatam. Now, when they told me that, then it made me think. Bhagavatam is meant to get people closer to Krishna, not away from Krishna. And we have then many instances in the Bhagavatam that Krishna fulfills material desires, as well as he makes the devotee realize that these material desires are insignificant at the same time. Just like Bhakta Dhruva had a very strong desire to get a kingdom bigger than his father's. And for that, he was prepared to undergo severe austerities to please Vishnu. And once he got the darshan of Lord Narayan, then he thought, what was I asking for? And he thought it was very insignificant. So although he had given up his desire, did the Lord not fulfill his desire? We know that the Lord actually gave him the rule of, that Svetadweep, pole star planet. The spiritual, actually it's a spiritual planet within the material universe, where Lord Kshirodakasai Vishnu resides. And he was the ruler of that planet for 30,000 years or more. So the Lord fulfilled that desire also, even though now he had no more that desire. So he prayed for, he says, broken pieces of glass, and he got diamond instead, the Lord himself. Now we have other examples also. Anyway, let's go first with this. So you may have a desire and therefore you are offering prayers, or you may have no desire, or you just want liberation, therefore you're offering prayers, or you want to become purified so that you can serve Krishna unconditionally in pure bhakti. You may have that desire, and you could serve Krishna for that reason, or you could actually perform your prayers. You can pray to the Lord for that. So you can approach the Lord with so many different kinds of prayers. We are recommended not to approach the demigods with the prayers, because the demigods are simply allowed to give what you deserve, and they don't care whether the thing that you are getting is going to be good for you or not. Because demigods, when demigod worship, that's the big difference. That demigod worship, actually you get what you prayed for or you did your tapasya for, and that's it. Whereas Krishna, if you pray for something, Krishna will consider whether it's good for you or not, and then either give it or withdraw it or not give it. And that's what people are afraid of. That's why many of them don't want to directly worship Krishna. They say Krishna doesn't fulfill material desires. But we see from the Bhagavatam, Krishna has fulfilled so many material desires without asking. Just like Sudama. He didn't even ask the Lord for anything. And in exchange for just a token of paltry chipped rice, the Lord gave him everything, materially even. But that material was actually not material, because it was actually that opulence given to Sudama was actually spiritual. Because the Lord knew that he was only going to use it in Krishna consciousness. because he sees even in the wealth that this wealth belongs to Krishna. This palace belongs to Krishna. This is what we call Bahunam Janmanamante Jnanaman Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. We have to come to a point where we are actually seeing Vasudeva everywhere in everything. So when this connection is there with Krishna, then there is no question of Maya. So Sudama hardly gave any chipped rice, a little bit of that measly thing. And he got so much in return. And he got love of Godhead, and he already had. And he actually went back to Godhead also. Then if you look at the example of, Kubja, the most ugly looking woman, hunchback, and she was ugly looking as well. And she with her good heart and intention, she offered, instead of Kansa, who the Chandan was meant for, she actually offered it to Krishna. And just for that, what did Krishna give her? Gave her unparalleled beauty. Her hunchback went away. She became one of the most beautiful, almost like an Apsara woman, and fulfilled her desires by accepting an invitation to her home. Now, one might say, oh, that came about just by that little bit of chandan she gave. Or that palace Sudama got just by giving that little bit of chip rice. And that relief from the crocodile by Gajendra just offering a little lotus flower. One lotus flower was enough to invoke the presence of the Lord on Garuda. Are these emblems, these little things, are they bringing the Lord and pleasing him? And then he's offering so much benedictions. Are these little things doing that? No. They are not doing that. It's not the chipped rice. It's not the lotus flower that he upheld. It's not these token things. It's not the fruit, flower, leaf, and water Krishna wants. And he's keeping it pretty simple. He's trying to make us understand this point, that is the love and devotion behind it. It's the feeling behind it. It's the bhav, the expression of love, unconditional, that he's so loved to these devotees that he wants to give them so much, but he knows the devotees can't even handle that much. So, so he gives still quite a proportion. So therefore, all these, the prayers that we have now, if you look at these prayers that we just recited, they are prayers of the ladies of Hastinapur. And what is the context? The context is, this is the first canto. And we all know that in the first canto, the topic which is covered is, what is the topic of the first canto? Anybody likes to say? Out of the 10 topics covered in the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Creation.
Creation. This is called Sarga. And this is the first canto. So, since it is about creation, look at these 5 prayers offered by these ladies of Hastinapur. They have a lot to do with these prayers about the whole creation and the process of attaining Krishna. If you look at actually it's conforming to the topic. And what are those prayers? Just like they're looking upon Krishna, who is a transcendental person. Why he's called transcendental? Because even before the material world existed, he transcendentally existed. Transcendental means transcendental to anything material. So he is the very source of creation. He existed before the creation, and he is the resting place after the annihilation of the creation. Everything rests within him. So these are simple ladies who are very shy, probably wearing white, who have gone up to the rooftop of the palace, and they are sprinkling flowers upon the person Krishna, and they are looking at him, and they're saying, look at this. This is the person right in front of our eyes who creates this entire material creation and annihilates it, and all things resting in him. That's him down there. That's him. So in relation to creation and annihilation, this first prayer was there. And then the second prayer is that he wants to place the jivas under the guidance of material nature with false names and forms, because they wanted to enjoy separately from Krishna. So he created the material world so they could make an attempt to do that, to show them you're not going to be happy doing this, because you're trying to enjoy what is asat. Asat brings about what? There is something that asat brings about. What is the primary characteristic of anything temporary or asat? The primary characteristic is fear. You know it is not real. It is asat, it's temporary. It will go one day. So you are fearful. The Atma is eternal. The temporary body is fearful. Temporary. The body is temporary. And because the body is temporary, but we are eternal, we are fearful of material existence at every moment. And yet we are seeking happiness in fear. So the Lord is trying to give us some name, some form, gives us different bodies in this world, and side by side, he gives us the scripture to give us the opportunity to get out of this when you have had enough, or make you realize, even when you've not had enough, make you realize that you're not getting anywhere, even if you try. So that's another thing, that these are the realizations of these ladies. And here's a very important point. The form of the Lord is experienced by great devotees completely cleansed of material consciousness, by practicing rigid bhakti with full control of life and senses. This is the only way to purify the existence. Now, should I go on or should I stop here for questions? I haven't finished it all.
Okay, keep going because you started late.
Please go on, Prabhuji.
All right.
Please go on, Prabhuji.
So now I was gonna say a very important point in this regard, that actually I have realized what I have personally seen, and I feel it's very important for devotees to understand this, and that is that see, many times, since we are following the Vaishnava tradition or bhakti, pure devotional service, many times it is seen that devotees feel that, oh, we are following the highest process. And therefore, certain rules and regulations of scripture don't apply to us. Yeah, many of you must have had also this experience when talking sometimes with some devotees, you feel that. And they say, do we need to do that? We are following Krishna consciousness. We don't need to do that. Rules and regulations. Sometimes devotees become, what shall we say, a little bit too confident of the process of devotional service, even when they are not mature yet. And they start laxing up their rules and regulations in their practices. Now, if you look at karma yoga, you look at jnana yoga, you look at ashtanga yoga, you take any yoga, even what we practice called bhakti yoga, we are practitioners. We haven't perfected it yet. These are all yoga systems. And the definition given in the Shastra for any yoga, whether it's bhakti yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, any yoga, is that yoga first starts with yoga indriya samyamya, that it starts with the control of the mind and senses, right? Now, in our process, as you will see with the next verse, let me read that while we are on this topic. Oh, dear friends, here is that very same personality of Godhead whose attractive and confidential pastimes are described in the confidential parts of Vedic literature by his great devotees. It is he only who creates, maintains, and annihilates the material world and yet remains unaffected. So in a transcendental position, one remains unaffected. That is there. But bhakti yoga is also a yoga system. There has to be mind control. There has to be sense control. But the procedure of controlling the mind and senses is that we engage the mind and senses in different activities in relation with Krishna. And that's how it becomes a little easier to control the mind and senses. But it's not a free license that now we are practicing bhakti yoga, so we don't have to worry about controlling mind and senses. This is actually a very, very dangerous pattern of thought. Just like, when Srila Prabhupada gave the 4 regulative principles, for example, I'm just giving an example. Srila Prabhupada gave the 4 regulative principles, no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. So after some time, it's being construed that no illicit sex means sex outside marriage. And Prabhupada so many times has stressed that even sex within marriage with one's own wife has to be only for the sake of procreation. Otherwise, it is pap. It is not even just karma yoga. It is completely pap. So pap and bhakti don't go well together. So it's not like there is no mind and sense control. These things are the preliminary requirements or even becoming a bhakti yogi. But it becomes easier. Why in our process, sex is allowed in the Gyan and other schools of thought, sex is completely forbidden. It's brahmacharya. Otherwise, you're not that yogi. If you're looking at the proper yoga system, it is not absolute brahmacharya. Why in Grihastha ashram, brahmacharya it's called brahmacharya is only if the purpose is for procreation, for Krishna conscious children. Because then it's a spiritual purpose. So it doesn't affect your consciousness. But as soon as it's not a spiritual purpose, immediately it's Maya. The very next moment it's Maya. And we have broken one of the regulative principles of devotional service and disobeyed our spiritual master or done something like that. So it becomes also a nam aparad and so many things. So therefore, there should be great vigilance. My Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj used to say, he said this, he asked this to Srila Prabhupada, where all our ISKCON devotees go back to Godhead. And Srila Prabhupada at one time replied, most of them are going to end up in heaven. So the question was asked, why they are not going to go back to Godhead, most of them go to heaven. And he said, it's because they are not very serious in their devotional service. You require to become a very serious devotee to go back to Godhead. And there are very quick methods of going back to Godhead mentioned of liberation, but not of love of Godhead. Very quick to get liberation, but not love of Godhead. And if it's not love of Godhead, that liberation is always temporary. Now, I found an interesting statement. I was reading Hari Bhakti Vilas, and there it says that such and such person, if he does this and he follows like this, he will go to the Vaikuntha locus for these many years. You go to the Vaikuntha locus for a set period of time? I thought that you go to the Vaikuntha, you're liberated, finished. So there are statements like that. Only if we have love for the Lord in our heart, if we have love, we can't be having lust there simultaneously. Then it's impure. Then it brings us back to this material world instantly, actually, in a second. So, so here, these ladies are saying that the form of the Lord is experienced by great devotees, not ordinary devotees, great devotees, completely cleansed of material consciousness by rigid bhakti, by practice of rigid bhakti, very strong, with full control of life and senses, full control. And then they say, this is the only way to purify existence. Very strong statement. And yet, we should not be discouraged by such strong statements, because on the other hand, look at what the results of getting this pure devotion would be. You have an ocean of bliss. You cannot imagine. Here we don't even have a drop. We are sacrificing very tiny things to get unlimited. That's what it is. And then the last one is also saying, that whenever there are kings and administrators living like animals in the lowest modes of existence, the Lord in his transcendental form manifests his supreme power, the truth positive, shows special mercy to the faithful, performs wonderful activities, and manifests various transcendental forms as is necessary in different periods and ages. So what is this? This whole prayer, these 5 verses actually give the entire plan of the Lord for rescuing the conditioned souls. If you look at it in one sentence, if you want to know, then it is the entire plan of the Lord for rescuing the conditioned souls. He creates this material world. He sends those with the desires of enjoying separately from the Lord in here. He gives them the scriptures to knock some sense into their heads. And then when the administrators become influenced by Tamogun, and then the purpose of the creation becomes questionable, then the Lord comes in the form of avatar. He removes the bad administration, and then he starts all over again to give the opportunity, because what the Lord really wants is not that everybody suffers and then they get back to Godhead. He wants them to live peacefully even in this world. Like it's described in the beginning of this chapter, that when Yudhishthira Maharaj was reigning, the oceans and the forests and the herbs, they were all paying their taxes to the king. This is how it's written. The mountains were and the oceans were paying taxes to the king. How? By producing what they're supposed to produce. And because it's a Krishna conscious government under a responsible and Krishna conscious ruler, therefore all of these other entities or non-entities, whatever you want to call them, they also, out of a great happiness, produce things that are needed in abundance. And so everyone lives very nicely in this world and then goes back to Godhead by understanding. So this is what really the Lord wants. Okay, you are in this world, live nicely, and then you go back to Godhead. And you see, most of those who take to the devotional process and surrender to the Lord looks after them beyond their imagination. Much better. Have to have faith. You have to have a leap of faith, a little bit out of comfort zone. Then you get this realization that actually, yeah, Krishna is looking after me. I wasn't sure in the beginning, but I just jumped in the deep end, not knowing what's going to happen, but I left it to him. And then look, now it's like beyond my imagination. Most devotees have this experience. So anyway, these are some of the lessons that I could see coming out from this prayers. Of course, we could speak on these prayers for a long, long time, many, many days and months even. But they are actually the gist of this. And these ladies, simple ladies, who are also devotees of the Lord, they could understand all these things. And the biggest so-called intelligent people of this world cannot even understand that there is a God beyond a transcendental personality. Most of those people who actually try and understand this, even if they even try, many are spiritualists who try to understand Vedanta, and by understanding everything is Brahman. But what happens is they become impersonalists, because in the process of understanding how Krishna is transcendent, how the absolute truth is transcendental to material existence, they end up with the absolute being impersonal. That is their deduction. So unless they get the favor of a devotee, they cannot even understand the Vedanta properly. So all the Upanishads and the Vedas are meant for understanding the Lord. And the Lord is very, very kind that he actually gives us this opportunity and the association of the devotees to try and understand the importance of spiritual life, dedicate ourselves at least this one lifetime, and achieve complete success. And Srila Prabhupada, I was hearing one lecture, he says that Krishna is the source. He is the supreme person. We are a person. We have feelings. Krishna has feelings. Just like we have feelings. He becomes a little hurt by somebody. Krishna becomes hurt. And Krishna becomes happy. He becomes sad. He also becomes compassionate. He becomes morose. He becomes angry. These are all signs of a person, these emotions. And then he has so many wonderful qualities. Out of that, since we are a part of him, we are also persons. And we are also persons. We have minute quantities, very minute quantities of the same qualities. And we don't have all those qualities that he has, but if we get 78% of those qualities, then we have perfected ourselves. So we got to get to the 78% qualities. Very minute quantity, just a little bit of each. That's all. then we reach perfection. That's what Srila Prabhupada says. So spiritual life is actually something to really look forward to. What you sacrifice in this world is like hardly anything. For what you get is just, you cannot imagine. So what a bargain. And therefore, there should be no hesitation. Hare Krishna. Thank you. So what's next?
Thank you for a wonderful class. It's quite heavy, as usual. We'd like to invite comments, questions. The floor is open. Devotees, please come forward. Thank you. I'll get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Thank you. So how much the role of the devotee or a spiritual master plays in our advancement? It looks like that we don't have much chance going back to Godhead in spite of our very immature plan to go back to him. So do we get mercy of the Lord or of a guru or devotee? How much we can depend on that? I heard that Prabhupada said that we can try, but he can get us back to the back door because of his mercy. So thank you, Prabhu.
Yes, that's true. Actually, Prabhupada said that. There was a very funny video I just saw, that also came from Wellington. Actually, it was of Amogalila Prabhu. You know how he's really funny, the way he presents things. So he was also saying that when you are at the doorway of Goloka, there will be some, finally you get to Goloka and there are doorkeepers there to see if you can gain entry or not. So they ask you, have you chanted your rounds properly? How do you think you're qualified? You have to be 100%, 100 points you have to get in order to enter. So he made it up in a story like that. So he's saying, okay, chanting, are you chanting good rounds? You are not chanting good rounds. Then he showed them a whole video of how his rounds are. Sometimes he's falling asleep, sometimes this happens, that happens, and his mind is somewhere else. He shows him a whole video of it. And he says, you can only get 2% for this chanting, that you have chanted 16 rounds for so long. So then he says, I went and attended Bhagavatam class. So in the Bhagavatam class, where was your mind and how well you have assimilated the Bhagavatam class. So therefore, you only probably deserve only 2%. So like that, it went on and it came up to the whole thing. He went to Mangalartis, he went to this, that, all of that. He gave little. So that makes up 90% still left, only 10% done. Then he said, oh my God, and how can I go back to God? Oh, Prabhupada, oh Krishna, oh Prabhupada, oh Srila, oh my Guru Maharaj. As soon as he said out like that, he said, okay, you've made the other 90%. You have already made another 90% because you have. So the point is that without mercy, it is not possible for your own endeavor to actually get there. Not possible at all. How do we invoke the mercy? How do we invoke someone's mercy? I mean, if we serve them, we are very loyal to them. We obey them. We undertake their burden and execute it. How do you please a person to get his mercy? How do you get his attention? You do all of those kind of things to the best of your ability. And you don't start comparing with others also, because every devotee has different capacity. And therefore, comparing is not a good thing, although comparing can be there for purpose of inspiration. But there should be a best effort put in, that's all. And if that is done, then you will get success in invoking the mercy of the spiritual master and the devotees. that is required. But if we start offending, if we start, criticizing, if we start all of those things, then how can we even get mercy? Mercy will be far away. Sometimes in leadership positions, I have found myself that actually it's a really, really hard situation, because without offending devotee, you have to sort of like tell them their faults, because you're in a position where you have to see the faults in order to rectify them. That's management. And if you let it go, then it becomes worse. So it becomes really difficult sometimes, but you have to give in your best efforts. Only those who have authority to do that should do that. Others who don't have the authority should actually stay clear from such things and concentrate more on their services that they have. But this is very important. Now, I met one devotee one time in a festival, and he was talking about, we should do things to please Krishna. And generally you would agree, we should do things which are pleasing to Krishna. But is that going to give us success, pleasing Krishna? Because those who follow the Varnashram dharma properly, they are also pleasing Krishna. They are also pleasing Krishna. Those who do some service to some Vaishnava, they are also very pleasing to Krishna. Chanur and Mustik were fighting with Krishna. They were pleasing Krishna. Yet they were not devotees. So is pleasing Krishna the only thing? Along with pleasing has to go intention. And both have to be there. The intention, favorable intention, service mood, and the effort behind it, all combination of everything, and good relationship with devotees, this will ultimately actually get us to invoke the mercy of the devotees. So in the long run, we have to see whether we are becoming more humble, we are becoming more serious, and another thing, serious doesn't mean that you go around with a very grave mood. You can be very light-hearted too. You don't have to be so grave. And that's a nice sign. Brahma bhuta prasanatma na shochati na kankshati. Samasarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. Real bhakti begins after all the lamentation is gone, all the desires have gone. Then the real bhakti starts. So we should aspire for that, and I think we will get there. We will get there. That's the assurance. Somehow or other, let us do our very best, and seeing our very best, then we may stand a chance. Any other comments anybody likes to make in regards to this? If they want to add something to this answer, they can.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.
Nice to hear your voice, Prabhuji.
I don't know who is speaking.
You nicely explained, you answered my question partially. This is a very simple question, Prabhuji.
Yes.
What is the silver line between the devotee and advanced devotee? We should not compare, but I just want to know from your point of view, Prabhuji.
What is the what? Sorry?
Silver line between the devotee and advanced devotee.
Well, the Bhagavatam gives 3 levels of devotees. The Kanishta Adhikari, the Madhyama Adhikari, the Uttama Adhikari. So if you want to know in truth who is the advanced devotee, the most advanced devotee, he does not see any faults in anybody. He only sees faults in himself. So he would be hopeless to manage unless he comes down to the Madhyama Adhikari platform. So he his heart is free from all propensity to find faults in others. And he is constantly all the time just absorbed in the holy name, chanting the holy name. And he has no malice towards anybody in his heart. He wishes well to everybody and he works for the ultimate welfare of everybody else. And he does not forget Krishna even for a moment. In everything he sees Krishna. And he's fully dedicated to Guru and to the sadhus and to Krishna. So that these are some of the signs of very advanced devotee. And he's constantly day and night engaged in like this. The Madhyam Adhikari, he is a second great devotee, but Prabhupada said we should come at least to that level. And that level is that we recognize who is the Lord, who is a devotee, who is an innocent person, and who is an envious person. The ability to distinguish between them, and to each one of them, you behave differently. If it's the Lord, you worship him. If it's the devotee, you try and serve him, get his blessings like that. If it's an innocent person, you try to help him in Krishna consciousness. And if it's an envious person, you avoid that person. So this is the way you deal with it. That is the Madhyam Adhikari. Madhyam Adhikari has faith, and his faith cannot be shaken. The Uttam Adhikari can give faith to others. The Madhyam Adhikari, he can give faith also to others, and his own faith can never be shaken. But the Kanishta Adhikari, by arguments and by association, his faith can be shaken. He can leave devotional service. So the most dangerous platform to stay in is Kanishta Adhikari. And Kanishta Adhikari, he sees only Krishna in the deity form. He doesn't know how to deal with the devotees. He makes distinctions and he quickly jumps to conclusions. There are many, so very immature, not very knowledgeable of Shastra, but, and hasn't has much association, but he's sincere in his endeavor. That is there, sincerity. But that sincerity can get destroyed if he commits offenses. So therefore, a Kanishta Adhikari has to quickly come to a Madhyam Adhikari platform. And then you have to get to the level of the highest devotee level. That is by the mercy only of great devotees that it happens. So what is the fine line, if you say? I think the overall thing by which you can judge is how well a devotee relates with all other devotees. A devotee who can do that, who doesn't have any enemies, and who is loving and kind to everyone, understands everyone's situation and tries to help everybody, and is totally devoted to Krishna, chanting properly, completely his senses and the mind in control. His mind is drawn to Krishna automatically. He's not forcing himself. Madhyam Adhikari has to monitor his mind also. But the Uttam Adhikari, the actually advanced devotee, his mind never goes anywhere. Automatically, he just drags to Krishna, nowhere else. And anything to do with Krishna. I don't know if I have filled in the gap yet.
A nice explanation, Prabhuji.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Right.
One more question, Prabhuji.
Yes.
It seems this in the Vedic scripture, it said the ladies or the girls, they don't go to Gurukul. But these ladies of Hastinapur, they are so advanced. I mean, they know all this conclusion of Shastra without going to, it seems without going to Gurukul. So how is that they have learned this, such a high level of realization without sort of formally going to any training?
See, there is one thing that these ladies still, although they remain sort of aloof from the men, and they don't have their Gurukul, but Srila Prabhupada many times mentions that all the things that they need to know, they get to know through their mother. And the mother gets to know through the saintly people who comes to visit and give this knowledge. So, and the father goes to Gurukul. So the father may have attended Gurukul and come back. So he is very knowledgeable. So the parents at home are actually very knowledgeable. So the little girl gets to know everything. So although for the sake of protection, the women were kept at home, the men who are the men of the house, they were actually knowledgeable. And they would associate with the sadhus. They would get this knowledge. They would learn through in Gurukul also, and then they will pass it on to their family, whether it's women or not. Does it make sense?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, definitely.
So that's how they used to get it. There was no Gurukul system, but they. Another thing is that they are naturally inclined to devotion. Women are actually more emotional, so they can relate with the heart, with anything. So if there is devotion in someone, then Krishna within the heart also gives the knowledge automatically. It doesn't have to come through erudite scholarship. It can be that knowledge and understanding of devotion is automatically revealed in the heart of somebody who has equal faith in Guru and Krishna. Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tatha guru tasyaite kathita hi artha prakashante mahatmana. That this katha, the meaning, the internal understanding of katha is automatically revealed in the heart of one who has implicit faith in Guru and in Krishna. So therefore, those who have this faith and devotion in the heart, Krishna from within their heart also reveals this knowledge. And they become fortunate like that. So it's not only through study of books. And we've seen so many people who have studied Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. They have not, if you do it just with the mood of erudite scholarship and trying to learn the verses and impress people, then you don't get the devotion so much. You get the benefit of having read them, you get the punya, but the devotion comes when you by practice. And this is the difference between all the other yoga systems and bhakti yoga. And in every other yoga system, you try and speculate and understand knowledge. When in bhakti yoga, you use your senses in your body and your mind, all in Krishna's service. You are engaging them practically. If the practical application is not there, it becomes mental speculation only. So we have to apply. And that actually makes us go ahead. Right.
That makes sense. Yeah. Also, their fathers and husbands, they also well learned, so they become the ladies.
They become the father and mother is the guru. It's mentioned. Father and mother become the guru. Any other points, comments, questions?
Looks like there's no one mentioning to ask questions or comments. Anybody else?
My obeisances to all the devotees then.
Prabhu, before you go,
Thakur Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
we'll ask Bilamangal Prabhu to give a vote of thanks.
Okay.
Prabhuji, you there? Bilamangal Prabhu?
Just before he says anything, I was actually tricked into giving this class. Krishna Chandra Prabhu, he first contacted me, can you please give this class? And I told him all my excuses and how busy I am. And, it's better, so many other nice devotees are there, they can give class. So I sort of declined that way. And then after a little while, Nanda Braja writes to me and he says it, and I give him the same excuse. Then the third time, Rantidev Prabhu comes and he says the same thing. And I say the same thing again to him. And then Rantidev sends me another text the fourth time. And I thought, am I committing an offense? I can't be refusing so many times. Maybe Krishna wants me to, although I am so unqualified, I'll do it as a service. So somehow, I got tricked into it. But Well, you can see where there's a will, there's a way.
Thank you. We did have associated for a long time, so the devotees were hankering for your
I also
association.
miss a lot of you, and hope that I can come.
Bilamangal Prabhu, you there? Please come
Yeah.
forward.
Once again, Hare Krishna, Nanda Kishor Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Gurudev and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Firstly, Prabhuji, I'm so delighted to have your darshan after a long time in your association. Same thing applies to your God brothers and sisters here in New Zealand. After a long time, yes. I would also like to mention in the assembly of devotees that you are my Siksha Guru and my wife's Siksha Guru, my family's Siksha Guru. I remember back in 1990s, I think it's 1990, when you came to Savu in Fiji, and you conducted a 7-day Bhagavad Katha in one of the temples. And somehow, because I was inclined to, this Ramayana and all that, and we hardly saw people in dhotis. So you were one of those first devotees in Savu. So I attended the 7 days Bhagavad Katha. And I was very inspired because I never heard Bhagavad Katha from any ISKCON devotees before. And so you became our Siksha Guru. And then you introduced my family to Srila Gurudev. And there were other, and later on, I was transferred from Savu to Taviuni. When you came back, one day you called. You promised me in Savu, and I told you that I'm transferred to Taviuni and I'm going there. And you said, well, you'll come to Taviuni one day. And when I went to Taviuni, I was back to the whole things again. And then you called one day. And then I was very happy. I was surprised, but I was happy to accommodate you and a number of brahmacharis at my place. I know it was a small place, but it was a school, so we managed to.
We really imposed ourselves upon you at that time. If it was today and in these days and age, I wouldn't have done that. I gave a lot of people a lot of trouble.
No. And that was arranged by Gurudev and Krishna. So definitely, well, the good thing is that we, since you came, you stayed with us for 2-3 weeks. And of course, we didn't cook. Everything was done by you guys. And we definitely dedicated ourselves to you and to the preaching and to Krishna. And since then, we started practicing chanting and all that. And of course, in 1991, in Lambasa, we took initiation from Srila Gurudev. I think it was April 1991, not very sure. So we are eternally indebted to you, Prabhuji. And
I was pushed by Gurudev to preach. I was not inclined to preach.
Well, you are.
So he gets the credit. I would have never have come to you. I would have stayed at my parents' place.
Anyway, well, thank you very much. And yes, your preaching prowess and your vigor and enthusiasm, there's no difference I can see. It is still the same as I recall you way back in 30 years back, strong preacher. And so on behalf of all the Auckland devotees here who are in this forum, I would like to express our very sincere gratitude and would like to say a big thank you for your association, for your time. You denied to give class, but ultimately you gave in. Thank you very much. And we hope to have more of your association in the near future. And I'm sure Nanbresh Prabhu is going to invite you later, and Krishna Chandra Prabhu. So once again, thank you very much, Prabhu, for enlightening us about prayers by the ladies of Hastinapur. you touched on very important aspects of devotional service through these prayers. And you mentioned that entire plan of the Lord was to rescue the conditioned souls. So through devotees like you, through our gurus, Krishna is trying to rescue us. And hopefully we'll, as you said, we should do our best in our devotional service. We'll try our best. And I'm sure our Guru and Krishna will help us with our journey back to Godhead. Thank you very much once again. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Pranam.
Thank you very much, Brahmanath Prabhu, for your nice comments. Krishna Chandra Prabhu is also there. Maybe you can have just few appreciation word, Prabhuji.
Yeah, definitely, Prabhu. Actually, it's my honor to say this, that on behalf of my family, actually, Prabhu, thank you so much. I think even saying thank you is not enough, because it was through your association, you took us from the material life into the spiritual life. And whatever little service we are able to do, it's all because of you. And I still remember that the 7-day sapta that you did at our place in 1993, your voice is still the same. When you started the class, I just said to my wife that his voice is still the same, and I can recall. And whenever your name comes in my mind, I always picture that you are sitting in a Vyasasana, wearing white and white, and the red mirdanga that you had during that 7-day sapta. So yes, we and my family were eternally indebted to you, Prabhu. So thank you so much for all your wonderful service to Srila Prabhupada's mission. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you for being such a wonderful and ideal devotee, all of you, actually. It's amazing. So,
Yeah, well, thank you, Prabhu, for joining us, give you a wonderful association and your valuable time. Very much appreciated. So our next program is just have a brief Nashinga prayer. I sing Lakshmi Nashinga Prabhu. We're going to sing Nashinga prayer. Prabhu, you ready?
Hare Krishna. Namaste Narasimhaya Prahaladaladaine Hiranyakashipurvakshaha Shilatankanakalana Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha Yato yato yami tato narsimha Bahir narsimha hridaye narsimha Narsimha madim sharanam prapade Tava kara kamalavare naka Adbhuta shringa Lalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Narsinghadev, Jaya Narsinghadev, Jaya Narsinghadev, Jaya Narsinghadev, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nrsimhadev Bhagwan ki Jai Prahlad Maharaj ki Jai.
Thank you, Lakshmi Nashinga Prabhu, for a nice kirtan. So before we end, I'd like to mention that the next prayer episode program will start next Monday. But then we have from tomorrow, Thursday, we have the starting of the Bhagavad Gita session by His Grace Vijay Gopikesh Prabhu. So tomorrow on the same Zoom link, starting at 7:45, Vijay Gopikeshwar will give a class on Bhagavad Gita, starting on chapter 18. So please try and join. In the next prayer sessions episode will start on a Monday. So thank you very much for all of you for joining this evening. It's been a wonderful evening and really appreciate your association. We would like to see you tomorrow and also following days. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakti, Gaur family Hari Ru, Dhanava Pranam, Vanchakar Padru Vaishya, Ipa Sindhu Bhaivacha, Patitam Pavani Vyo Vaishnava Vyo Namanama. Hare Krishna.